Diane Abbott in happier times, one icon of the left singing out the name of another one.
We keep the red flag flying here.
She was praised from all sides in politics over the years for enduring threats and abuse. Only 2 months ago it emerged that a millionaire Tory donor had said, "Diane Abbott makes you want to hate all black women." At the time, Keir Starmer went to console her. "I just came to see if there's anything I can do," he asked. "You could give me the whip back," she said. This week, Keir Starmer did just that. It was meant to be part of a deal that would remain hidden from view. She would be accepted back into the fold, but announced she was voluntarily standing down. Dignity would be saved. But someone leaked. She'd been blocked from standing. Diane Abbott today said, "I am very dismayed that numerous reports suggest I have been barred as a candidate."
No decision has been taken to bar Diane Abbott. The process that we were going through ended with the restoration of the whip.
Although Keir Starmer wants distance from Jeremy Corbyn and his allies, 24 hours of Diane Abbott headlines was not in Labour's election grid. Some in the party say Keir Starmer has not gripped this situation early enough and will have to do better on party management if he makes it into power. The end result has been a distraction from Labour's big push on bringing down NHS waiting times.
And our plan, those 40,000 extra appointments a week through extra evening and weekend working, will make a real difference to get that backlog down, doubling the number of scanners so we diagnose earlier, treat faster, work in partnership with the independent sector to use spare capacity.
Listening in Worcester, some nurses keener than others on the idea of extra hours.
So you'd be willing to work a bit of overtime to help clear that backlog if you were asked?
Yes, I'll be willing, so long as it does not impact or stress our normal pattern of work.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't have the time to do that.
Wes Streeting said he would go further than Tony Blair in using the private sector to ease NHS pressures. Some said that rhetoric might outstrip reality.
I think this is a little bit of a red herring, really, in that there isn't huge amounts of private sector capacity that's untapped. So the NHS is already using the private sector to do lots of hips and knees. And what Labour is saying today is they will continue to do so. But if you compare the workforces, you know, the private sector workforce is a fraction of our existing NHS workforce. So it's not as though there's huge untapped capacity that we can use to get these waiting lists down.
So if we're re-elected, we're going to have 100,000 more apprenticeships a year.
Rishi Sunak, campaigning in the West Country, said if re-elected, he would ban some university degrees deemed low-performing and put the money saved into apprenticeships.
Not everyone needs to go and get a degree, so we're going to say, hang on, look at some of the degrees that don't really give people a brilliant start and take that money instead, create far more high-quality apprenticeships.
Is there any chance you might vote for the Lib Dems?
I don't know. It's not the best time.
The Lib Dem's Ed Davey says voters need to see images of politicians not taking themselves too seriously to engage with the 2024 election. Now, 1 week old.
So how has the confusion about whether Diane Abbott can stand for re-election gone down in her constituency of Hackney North and Stoke Newington? Aisha Tull has spent the day there.
And I declare that the said Diane Julie Abbott has been duly...
So a very good vote there for Labour. Diane Abbott becomes Britain's first black woman MP.
Diane Abbott beaming from ear to ear. The 1987 general election became a moment in history. The first black woman to sit in the House of Commons. For decades, she was considered to be at the heart of what the Labour Party stood for.
As it has been used in Ireland, used against the black community, used in colonial struggles since time immemorial, the law was used as a weapon of the British state against working class people.
But fast forward to 2024 and what's shaping up to be another historic election, Diane Abbott's position within the party has drastically changed. Allies told me she's on the outside, looking in. It's been a dizzying 24 hours for anyone keeping up with what's going on. But for some in the black community, the treatment of Diane Abbott is a sign the party is taking their vote for granted.
Diane Abbott has become effectively an avatar for the racism that many black and brown people have to contend with. And when we see how people treat Diane Abbott, we recognise that those subtleties, and sometimes they're not even that subtle, those implications, that bigotry, we recognise that, and we live that. We live that day to day in our jobs, we live that day to day pretty much in the street too.
Labour launched an investigation in April last year after Miss Abbott was accused of anti-Semitism. The National Executive Committee gave her a formal warning for her conduct. In what is usually a staunch Labour stronghold in East London, what do they think of the events?
What do you make of how the Labour Party has handled this? Would it stop you from voting Labour?
It's putting me in a question about it, but then I hate the Conservatives at the moment, so I don't want the Conservatives to come in, so I still may vote Labour.
I think Keir Starmer only cares about racism when he feels it's politically expedient for him.
Will it stop you from thinking about voting for Labour?
It wouldn't, in a way. I don't like the Tories in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know, but I can't vote Labour. I can't.
Everyone we've spoken to in Hackney has had a similar mixture of confusion and anger when they think of how they feel that Diane Abbott has been treated. So they're united in that front. But what they're divided on is the impact they think it will have when they come to vote and whether they'll vote Labour at the next general election.
Back when this started last year, Rabbi Herschel Gluck, a long-time supporter of Diane Abbott, was shocked by her comments in The Observer, which suggested that Jewish, Irish and traveller communities face prejudice, but not racism.
I spoke to her a number of times on the phone, and she was very sorry that she made that statement, and she felt that she had a lapse of judgment. And we both realised that this was totally out of character.
People in the Labour Party may say they're breaking with the past. They don't want the era of what they went through with Jeremy Corbyn. And so what they're doing is actually protecting the Jewish community.
They're not doing this for the Jewish community. If they would care for the Jewish community, they would really come here and see what needs to be done to stop the rampant anti-Semitism that we face every single day. There are those who say that Keir Starmer is a good human being. Well, he has to prove it. His behaviour, as far as Diane is concerned, has shown a total lack of human sympathy, and any aspiring Prime Minister needs to show that they care for people, and especially people who have served their party so well for over 4 decades.
With feelings running high, the tussle over the selection of just one Labour seat is causing national-level problems.
Well, Diane was just here moments ago. She was speaking up there. She got into a car. There was lots of cameras and photographers around her. She didn't say a word. What she did say was to the people who were waiting here in this crowd, they were waiting to hear what she had to say, because there has been so much confusion going on throughout the whole day. Keir Starmer said that it was a national decision that hasn't been made yet. But this is what Diane Abbott had to say moments ago.
I was shocked to learn yesterday that I am going to be banned from running for the Labour Party. I have been selected by my local party members, many of whom are here today, but the National Party is insisting that I be banned. They haven't communicated with me personally.
Well, as she said, that no one has communicated with her from the National Party, and that's what she is really upset about. What she also confirmed here is that she'll stand no matter what, so she'll stand as an independent as she has to. Now, friends and allies have been talking to me all day, and what they have said is, you know, this is coming towards the end of her career. This is not the way that they want to see her end it.
I should tell. In Hackney, where Diane Abbott has just been addressing the crowd and saying that she hasn't heard from the National Party. She believes she has been banned, and she will stand in some form no matter what. Well, it wasn't just the yo-yoing on Diane Abbott distracting from the Labour Party's announcement today on cutting NHS waiting lists. Junior doctors in England have announced another 5-day strike just before the election. Our health and social care editor, Victoria MacDonald, joins me now. Victoria, why these dates?
Well, why these dates? Possibly because their mandate runs out in September, and this was a good opportunity to do it. The Health Secretary, Victoria Atkins, accused them of being cynical. But let's go back a bit, because it is quite clear there has been no progress in talks. Now, she accused the British Medical Association of being highly cynical by announcing it on the day of Labour's health launch. She also said they had walked out on mediation. Well, the BMA came back and said, who were we going to mediate with? The election was called. We had no control over it. I put it to them then, why on the day of the Labour health launch of the waiting list initiative? And they said, well, we're not on their grid. We don't know what they're going to be doing. Some might say that that was a bit disingenuous, but they said that this was what they'd planned to do today. Now, it obviously irked the Labour Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who was, of course, challenged this morning when he wanted to be talking about waiting lists, was challenged about what he would do about junior doctors. And he said quite clearly, Labour could not afford the 35%, but, you know, that there would be talks if they win the election.
Right, but of course, the Labour announcement is on waiting lists, and in order to get them down, you can't have strikes.
Precisely. So here was an announcement that rather was overshadowed by the junior doctors' strike, and at the same time it undermined it, because you quite clearly need the staff to be working in order to get those waiting lists down. But there were other announcements within that, not just waiting lists, but about technology, about staff. And I suppose what a lot of the health analysts were saying was it's a very interesting start, but what they need is more detail.
What we need most of all is a recognition that the current way in which the health service works is unsustainable. Unless we can do more to improve the health of the nation, unless we can do more to help people stay healthy for longer, then whatever government is in power, they are going to be caught in this gap between the capacity we've got and the demand that we face as a nation.
Okay, and of course we will get more detail in the health manifestos, and particularly people will be watching social care, which of course then builds into what happens in the NHS.
Thanks, Victoria. Well, I've been speaking to the Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, and I began by asking him if he thinks the NHS is broken, and if so, why?
The NHS is broken. It's going through what is objectively the worst crisis in its history. And we've seen 14 years of chaos, mismanagement and bad political leadership that led to record waiting lists before the pandemic and rising waiting lists since the pandemic, to the extent that we now see waiting lists trebled compared to where they were in 2010. And we've turned on its head the record of the last Labour government, which delivered the shortest waiting times and the highest patient satisfaction ever, to a situation where we see the longest waiting list and the lowest patient satisfaction on record.
Well, isn't your plan for the NHS rather modest? I mean, all you're offering to do today is take us back to where we were in 2016, with waiting lists for many people of 4 months before they get their treatment.
What we're setting out today is far more ambitious than it was even in 1997, where Labour committed to cut NHS waiting lists by 100,000 by sacking some NHS managers. Here, what we've set out today on the campaign trail is a plan to deliver 40,000 more appointments every week through extra evening and weekend working. That's £1.1 billion into the pockets of NHS staff. It's to double the number of diagnostic scanners, so we diagnose earlier and treat faster. And Krishnan, compared to where we are today, getting the NHS waiting times back to the 18-week standard that the NHS has always tried to work to but hasn't met since 2016 would be revolutionary for people on those waiting lists.
Doesn't it sum up the modesty of what Labour's offering here, that all you're doing is offering is effectively to take us back to how things were a few years ago? You're not offering to actually fix the NHS in the way that you say it's broken.
What I want to do at this election is make sure we under-promise with the aim of over-delivering, than do what the Conservatives done, which is over-promise and under-deliver.
Where's your pledge on social care? There's nothing on that.
We're making a number of commitments on social care. We've made a commitment to stabilise the workforce and deliver fair pay, the first ever fair pay agreements in social care, which would make a real difference to staff recruitment and retention. We've made a commitment to deliver national standards in social care so that wherever you live, wherever you're from, whether you need older care or in later life, or whether you need disabled people's care, that you will get the support that you need consistently across the country. As with the NHS, it is going to take time to build to where we want to be.
But if you're not really going to deliver massive change to the NHS and it's all incremental and 10 years away, what's the point? Where's the change?
We're talking about a backdrop where there are 7.5 million people on an NHS waiting list, where people are waiting more than a year. I was talking to a veteran who waited more than 2 years for care today here in Worcester, getting down to 18 weeks. That's revolutionary compared to where we are. And I'm sorry, I'm really sorry that the Conservatives have been in power for 14 years. I'm really sorry that the Labour Party in 2010, 2015, 2017 and 2019 weren't able to persuade people to put their cross in Labour's box in sufficient numbers. And that is the jeopardy that's hanging in the balance on July the 4th.
For a man who doesn't like waiting lists, do you think Diane Abbott had to wait too long when it took over a year to judge something she wrote, immediately withdrew and apologised for?
I accept that Diane Abbott has waited too long. I think it was right that disciplinary action was taken, and right, by the way, to acknowledge that Diane apologised rightly for what she said. We'll find out what's happening as regards to Diane's candidacy at the general election, whether she wants to stand, would be able to stand. Keir Starmer's obviously spoken to that today in terms of correcting earlier reports this morning.
Have you all been telling the truth when asked about the process? Because Keir Starmer and many of you have carried on saying there is an ongoing process. It is now claimed that the process was finished 5 months ago, that she was given her warning, sent on retraining, and that the process was over. Why will you keep saying that it was ongoing? What was ongoing?
I always relay facts in good faith. I'm not part of the Labour Party's disciplinary process. On days like this, I'm very grateful for that. But I can't give you a commentary on this because I've not been involved in the process. And I do, I take Keir at his word. I've always trusted Keir. And I hope that this matter can be drawn to a successful conclusion for everyone involved.
Wes Streeting, thank you very much.
Thanks, Krishnan.